Hello, this is Bernd of Bernd's Drums speaking. Welcome to the presentation of my internal miking project. As you can see, I have a Sonora Force Maple drum set, and I found my own way of fitting internal mics into that set. And this is what I want to show you in the following video. First of all, the disclaimer. I have no commercial interest. This video is totally for free. The brand names mentioned or appearing in this video are not sponsored, and we all know there are plenty of equivalent items or tools by other manufacturers that you can use during this procedure. I've performed this procedure and tested it, and the result, and I can only say it works, and it works well. All you need is a basic technical knowledge and the ability to handle the required tools safely and according to their respective purpose. I cannot be held responsible for any damage. Of course, please be careful. Suitable eye and hand protection is strictly recommended. The advantages of this system is, of course, first of all, it's cheaper than any commercially available system. I find it quite easy to fit if you are a little bit crafty. In the end, it does not look self-made. And one of the major advantages, it is fully reversible. You do not have to drill holes in your set as required by other systems. There will arise no damage and no permanent changes. So this way of internal miking is suitable for higher end and precious sets. You of course don't want to be damaged afterwards. It provides a great sound and playability, but of course you have to tweak a little bit with your EQ setting. The sound changes a little bit when the mics are in the toms and snares. But another advantage is that you got less bleeding from other toms or other sound sources. First, I refer to the ingredients or components you have to provide in order to mount this internal miking system. First of all, you need aluminum flats that are necessary to make the holders for the XLR sockets outside the drums. I used a 30 millimeters wide flat and 3 millimeters thick. The length of 1000 millimeters is suitable. Of course, you have to cut this and drill holes. So you need further tools. First of all, this metal saw. Another essential thing is this bungee cord made of several elastic fibers with a nylon tissue woven around. I use the 6 millimeter diameter variant, which can be stretched to double the length. By the way, the prices here are euro prices. They indicate the range of price you have to pay for the respective item or component. We need cable ties. Please refer to the bigger ones. We need double-sided tape in order to fix the leather ribbon on our microphones. Um, I'll show you later on the purpose of this. Com pliers or lineman's pliers are used for multiple functions. This is the leather ribbon I was talking about. I choose this light brown variant because that suits well to my drum set. You are free to choose any other color. What you should keep in mind, 20 millimeters wide is suitable and at least 2 millimeters thick, and not too hard leather because it has to be impressed a little bit, which increases the fixation afterwards. Hole cutters are required to prepare the aluminum holder for the XLR socket. There you have to choose the suitable diameter. In my case, it was about 27 or 29 millimeters. A soldering iron for the electric connections. A metal file set for fine preparing the hole in the aluminum holder for the XLR socket, as well as smoothing the edges of the cut aluminum. A sanding sponge to restore the surface of the aluminum flat, which is brushed lengthwise. So after you had been working with it, it will have a lot of scratches. In order to provide a smooth surface, use the sanding sponge only unidirectional, please. Screwdrivers are required, of course. A nut driver set. The pipe wrench is needed for the aluminum clamps that fix the bungee rope afterwards. The elbow connectors are mounted in the toms and drums. They give hold to the bungee string. These squeeze lamps are operated by the pipe wrench and for fixation of the elastic string. XLR connector sockets, of course, the male version as provided in the mic itself, so that you can just connect your usual XLR cable. Screws and self-securing nuts. I used the M2 diameter, used the countersunk heads. They look nicer in the end. Adhesive pads. This is just an example, not very pretty because they are dark. I used white ones. You can use transparent ones. I'll show you later on what they are needed for. XLR cable, you can configure them yourself if you're not afraid of soldering. I bought the short ones that are ready to use with the 90 degrees angle plug because that is needed if you use them in the toms. Of course, the other end has to be cut off afterwards. Insulation tape in order to insulate the soldered connections of the cable to the socket. Some ring washers to be put underneath. Please never use a cordless screwdriver. If that whole thing should be fully reversible, um, it is not suitable to make any damage with such a tool. Use um, manually screwdriver and no automatic or cordless screwdriver. You have to reach into the tom and it will slip off and it will scratch the surface and it will ruin your screw heads. Always protect your hands and eyes, especially when drilling and when sawing the aluminium. So we start with the toms. For a short overview, you already see um, the bungee string in a certain tension, the mic placed upright, and the XLR socket is placed here on the outside with the holder mounted to the hoop, and I use the vent hole for leading the XLR cable through. Suitable for all tom sizes. I use that for 8-inch to 16-inch toms. First of all, I refer to the lug screws. This is where we mount these elbow connectors. Use the row of lug screws towards the better side of the tom, not to the resonance side, because the mic must face the better head. So open these screws, put the elbow connectors underneath, all mounted in a certain direction. I mounted them like that, facing to the bottom, and screw the screw tight again. Afterwards, we pull that bungee rope through, make a knot on one end, and then pull it through the elbow connectors down up and through the cable tie up down. You see I've already closed the cable tie a little bit, but left enough space to put the microphone in afterwards. So in the end, it looks like a star, having as many ends as we have lug screws here. In order to estimate the needed length of the bungee rope, use the formula, measure the distance from the wall to the center of the tom and take it twice the number of the lugs we have. So we have 4, 10 times the distance wall to the center, because you have to pre-cut that bungee rope first, because it needs a knot on one end and the other end has to be pulled through the elbow connectors and the cable tie. Provide a relatively high tension, but do not fully stretch the string, because afterwards you have to close this and it must be able to give way in order to fix the microphone. This is one end with a knot that prevents it from slipping through here. This end will be knotted with the other end after having pulled through all the elbow connectors as required. And in the end, you use these squeeze clamps with your pipe wrench and squeeze it together, and then knot the ends together and pull one end through the other hole and squeeze it again. So this is safely secured from slipping through. This is the result. Pull through this way, and this end that way, squeezed, knotted, and the longer end pulled through here again, squeezed, and cut off. This is the view from the top. You can see the closure here. You can see this is quite in the center. It's not always exactly by millimeters in the center, but it works well. The result works well if it looks like this. Now we put our microphone in upright, and it has been prepared with the double-sided tape and with the leather ribbon. And as you can see, the bungee string is impressed here a little bit, and these impressions in the leather caused by the tightening of the cable tie prevents the whole system from slipping, prevents the microphone from slipping out. One thing you have to have in mind is when you insert the microphone, make sure that the plug afterwards will point directly to the vent hole. If you put it the other way around, the cable has to uh, be laid in a circle and maybe then falls down and touches the resonance head, which is not desired. So before you tighten the cable tie, make sure that the right end of the microphone or the right side of the microphone is pointing towards the vent hole for cable insertion afterwards. If you make any mistake here, it's no problem to use another cable tie, but do not cut the first one off and then try to put another one in because you got high tension. Leave the first one in there, put another one through, underneath and over the respective parts of the string here. Once around, close it, and then cut the wrong one off, and then you have just to you have the opportunity to correct the mic position and close the cable tie again. This is a little bit tricky, but if you do it that way, you can change the mic position as often as you need uh, until you're content. It must be upright. Um, this actually should be a bit more in the middle of the leather ribbon, and you can use high force um, to close the cable tie tight so that the whole system is secure enough. The view from above, you can see upright mic position and cable pointing or plug pointing directly to the vent hole and the cable directly led out. This is how it should be. The view from outside, you see there's always enough space for the vent hole to work in its original purpose. We now prepare the aluminium holder. First of all, you have to bend it. I do that manually over the edge of a table. If you use a clamp and fix it, you can bend it manually to 90 degrees, and one end should have then 10 centimeters and the other end should have 5 centimeters. And in the longer end, um, far away from the edge. You cut the hole suitable for the XLR socket with this special drill. You prepare the hole as the XLR socket is shaped, that it will fit in there well. I used here the rectangle version of the file and then a flat one to prepare this part. And you can see in the end the shape of the socket now exactly fits into here, and the result then looks like this. I strictly recommend to leave the XLR socket in place when you are drilling these holes, because aluminium is quite different from wood. If the holes you drill are not exactly underneath the holes in the XLR socket, you will have severe problems when you try to screw that tight. I use an insulation tape wrapped around here in order to prevent aluminum parts from falling in here, and fix the whole thing and make sure that you drill out the whole space that is preformed by the holes in the XLR socket. In the end, I use my screws and self-securing nuts, and this fits quite well. The result looks like this. If you take screws with countersunk heads, it looks okay. This is already the electrical testing. I connect an XLR cable and use this interface for my laptop computer and connect it with my digital audio workstation. And if you now touch the microphone, you see activity here, which is a proof that it works well. You can just electrically check the connections. There are other ways to make sure that it will work afterwards. Before you complete the fitting and mount the tom back to your rack, this should be made sure that it works electrically. After having used insulation tape in order to protect this electrical connection, or to cover this electrical connection, you mount the holder arm back to your hoop here. I use the original washer underneath the screw to put it here underneath the holder. I put the damping pad here to prevent the hoop from being scratched by this arm. Of course, you must check the distance for this hole, that you got enough space to squeeze it in here and push the screw through. The screw's got another steel washer to make it easier to turn during tuning. This system is stable. This doesn't move, and you are still able to tune the drum or the tom as you like. And then you can see, if you work on the surface afterwards, it looks quite fine. You see the spare cable we require uh, for mounting the whole system. This shouldn't be too straight. There should be some cable left. This is the end result. Tuning or whatever you like can be added. Here I've collected the working steps for you once again. Take the heads off, mount the elbow connectors, measure the required bungee cord length according to this formula, distance center wall by the number of elbow connectors by 2 and a little bit more will be enough for this purpose. Prepare the cable tie and hold it in the tom center and then pull in the bungee cord. Maintain the required tension. Close it with squeeze clamp and knot and cut off the rest. In the meantime or after this, prepare the mic with adhesive tape and leather ribbon and tighten the cable tow then around the mic when it's in the right center position. Make sure that the cable will, or the plug will point, the XLR plug will point to the vent hole afterwards. Then connect the plug, cut the male plug off, and lead the cable and out through the vent hole, and then prepare the aluminium mount and fit the XLR connector socket as shown. Shorten the cable and solder it to the mounted connector. Secure it with insulation tape. Check the connection electrically, and then refix better head and insert the XLR socket holder using a damping pad and a ring washer, and then do what else you want to do. Refix the resonance head, tune it, clean the toms, polish the chrome, whatever you like. In the following, I want to present some variants of this method, individually designed for special drums. This is the version for a Pearl Chad Smith signature snare, which has a metal corpus and 2 rows of lock screws. I had a quite big microphone to be installed here, so I designed a aluminium holder, the same aluminium flats as I use for the outside holder arms, 30 millimeters by 3 millimeters, bent again, suitable holes drilled, suitable hole drilled here, and all near to the vent hole in order to lead the XLR cable out directly, as you can see here. The view from below, of course, you must make sure you are far enough distant from the resonance head and far enough distance from the better head, which just worked in this case. If you want to make sure that the mic doesn't slip out the holder here, use tape to fix it. The end result from outside, you can see the insulation tape here wrapped around the socket, and then the cable. You need the amount of spare cable left on a spring. This can be connected to the XLR mic cable. The top fixation is the same again. Pads here, proper distance here, original washer underneath, another washer on top here, perfectly tunable and works well. The same procedure for a wooden snare. This is the original Force maple snare. quite thin, and it's only got one row of lug screws, as you can see from the inside. So I didn't trust the aluminium holder arm. I mounted the elbow connectors here and there, and inserted the bungee string, tighten it, pulled it quite tight, fixation or closure of the string as usual. I had to use 2 layers of leather for this angled microphone in order to find a proper position pointing a little bit towards the better head. I used cable ties again for fixation. This is maybe a little bit fiddly, but I'm sure if you are manually gifted, it's no problem for you to find the proper position that with an additional cable fixed here or plugged in here, you won't touch the resonance head and will have enough space to the better head in order to um, obtain a perfect sound. And I've already played it and it sounds great. Complete view from the top, I had only to use 4 of these elbow connectors. Cable comes out by the side here. View from the bottom, enough space to the resonance head. Okay, another example, fitting a dynamic mic into a kick drum. This looks a little bit confusing, but the purpose was to end up with a microphone exactly in the middle of the kick drum, between these 2 rows of lug screws. So this required a string construction looking a little bit strange. It's nothing else than back row, front row, back row, front row, back row, front row, back, front, back, front. If you meet the original starting point. And this provides a system of strings that build a center point right here. You can penetrate with your fingers and push them apart in order to then fix the cable tie first and put in the microphone that has prepared with leather ribbon as usual, and then pull the cable tie tight. And you then have this result, which is perfect. It points towards the better head. It provides the mic position right in the center of the kick drum. And the whole thing can swing a little bit. There are no interferences, and it sounds great. Okay, here you can see the view from near. I used a strong and big cable tie for this case, and additionally knotted a piece of these bungee string around, and this is absolutely tight. You can see the way I let the cable out. Of course, there is contact to the bungee string, so I had to use another cable tie to fix that here in order to make it not swing and hit this bungee string here and produce any disturbing sounds. The XLR socket holder looks a little bit different because it's mounted to the tom holder. So I measured the distance of the two screws of the tom holder and drilled the corresponding holes here. The fitting of the socket is as you know it, as I've shown before. It is mounted here because I have my toms mounted on rack, so I don't need this um, tom holder um, device, and used it to lead the cable through. Um, if you look from the other side, you see the look from the front. You plug in here the mic cable. If you don't want to use this or have to use this for a tom holder, use the vent hole, which is right here. Makes a little bit longer distance for the cable outside the kick drum. But the tom holder system works perfectly. Of course, this is a Sonore system. For any other systems, uh, you might have to find an individual solution. In the end, if you use a cushion or a blanket, this is well fixed by these bungee strings, and this is what it looks like right before I um, mounted the pedal. I got another kick drum using a Shure Beta 91A microphone, which is especially suitable for kick drums. Of course, uh, this is not round and this is not symmetric, and this has a surface that has to point towards the beta head, so I couldn't use the same solution as before. I mounted two elbow connectors on one side and two connectors on the bottom of the beta head side, and I prepared a piece of aluminium flat in order to be connected to the microphone, and additionally used leather ribbon round here on the non-sensitive part of the microphone, and used a cable tie. This is how I fixed the aluminium flat to the back of the microphone that has two sockets here for wall mounting. This is quite practical. Two holes outside for fixation to the bungee strings. View from the front. Then the whole system mounted from the back. Of course, you know, I had to made a cross shape with the strings, and that had to be prepared by cable ties a little bit in order to show this more trapezy-like shape. And I used cable ties for connection and fixation, another pair of cable ties to prevent the whole system from slipping, but it doesn't move a millimeter afterwards. Mounting to the tom mounting system in the usual way, as shown in the other example. The result with a professional foam for dampening. You have to just to cut here twice and push it through, so it's no difference to the previous state, and it has well contact to beta and resonance head, and dampening is perfect and sound is perfect. So that's it for the moment. Thanks for your attention. If you like, leave a like down there right underneath, or subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, please comment. I try to answer, and you know, good luck for your endeavor, and I hope it works with your set as well. See you soon.